So some of you might still be a little disappointed that Apple is charging $550 for a pair of headphones, because I can tell you for a fact, I am still very much annoyed with that. But thankfully, Timothy is about to make it up to us and bless us with something in 2021, and that is the next budget iPad, which we can refer to as the iPad 9. Now, the budget iPad has been pretty decent in the past. It's definitely a great deal for what it is, but there have been some shortcomings that pretty much put me off from ever buying one. But this iPad 9 could be fixing most of these issues and could also lower the price. You heard me right, I said lower. Apple is considering making the budget iPad even cheaper while upgrading some of its core shortcomings. That is pretty mind-blowing stuff. I'm very surprised and honestly does seem a little too good to be true. But anyways, we'll delve into all of this. So without further ado, make sure to like, subscribe, click that notification. And with that being said, let's just delve in. So this information comes from a Chinese website called CN Beta. Now, I'll be honest, they aren't the most credible source in the world. They don't really have a lot of leaks and rumors behind them, so I would take this information with a humongous grain of salt. But I am mentioning this because what they're saying does seem pretty legit, and it does seem a direction that Apple could take with the next budget iPad. So let's begin with the design. Now, we had some pretty fishy Twitter leakers claiming the budget iPad would be getting an iPad Pro-like redesign, but those so-called leakers have now disappeared off the interweb, so it's fair to say those leaks were probably fake. But thankfully, this report suggests a more likely scenario. So basically, much like I hinted in another video, which you can check out in the iCard above, Apple's taking the iPad Air 3 design and they're giving it to the budget iPad. Now this does make a lot of sense because Apple recycles a lot of their designs when it comes to their cheaper products, because obviously it can keep the costs down. For example, the budget iPad is based on the original iPad Air from 2013, and obviously the recently announced iPad Air is based on the 2018 iPad Pro. And so for Apple to just take the iPad Air 3 design and boom, give it to the cheaper iPad, that makes a whole load of sense to me. And this design is going to be a huge improvement for the budget iPad because it's going to make it much thinner and lighter. Namely, it's going to be 0.07 pounds lighter and 1.4 millimeters thinner. So that is a much more compact, lighter body that I guess a lot of people might enjoy and a lot of people might appreciate. Now, an upgrade I am very much looking forward to, which will come with this redesign, is a laminated display on the budget iPad. This is long overdue. A non-laminated display is literally like living in the Stone Ages. We need laminated displays as standard across the iPad lineup, and I'm very, very, very glad that's going to be the case in 2021. And not only will it be laminated, but it will have a 10.5-inch display instead of 10.2 inches, and possibly P3 color support, so it will be a nicer display to look at for viewing content, and overall it's going to be much better than the display we have on the budget iPad today. Personally, I think this design is perfect for the budget iPad because it strikes a balance of having upgrades over the current model, but also not being so good that it cannibalizes the iPad Air. Because obviously this design will still have a forehead and chin, it'll still have a home button, it'll still have Touch ID built into the home button, and of course, Lightning. So if you take that into consideration, there are still many upgrades you get with the iPad Air that justifies the higher price, and it makes sense in the hierarchy of iPad products. Now, the next upgrade I'm looking forward to is regarding the specs. So of course, the budget iPad we have right now is no slouch. It has an A12 chip, 3 GB of RAM, but it has 32 gigs of storage. That's not right. In 2020, Apple can't be selling an iPad with 32 gigs of storage. And so the next budget iPad should be fixing exactly that. You get 64 gigs of storage as standard. Thank you, Apple. That makes so much sense, and I think that's perfect for a lot of users. It'll be the bare minimum that most people need, so 64 gigs as standard, that's a great move. Next is the A13 chip. Now, honestly, A14 would have been nice to see, especially since next year the A14 will be around a year old, so it would make sense for Apple to include it in the budget iPad, but at the same time, the iPad Air will probably stick around for a bit longer, and so I guess they don't want the budget iPad to be as good as the iPad Air in terms of performance, so it's going to be a step down, A13, but that's definitely no slouch. The A13 is still a great chip, and it should be perfectly fine for what most people need in a budget iPad. But what I'm most looking forward to is the upgrade in RAM. So you're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM with this budget iPad, and that's going to help with longevity. You're going to get longer support, but multitasking should be much better because it has 4 gigabytes of RAM instead of 3, as it has been in some of the recent versions of the budget iPad. In terms of other features with this iPad, it should be pretty similar to the current gen iPad we have right now. For example, you have the smart connector, which means, yes, you can use the overpriced smart keyboard. I can't believe they're charging £160 for that. It also have Apple Pencil 1 support, which means, yes, you have to charge the pencil through the port, which honestly looks very dumb. I honestly don't understand how Apple let that happen, but at the same time, they let the AirPods Max smart case happen. So I guess Apple just likes doing dumb things occasionally. Anyways, we'll still have the same potato 8-megapixel camera, but at least it will be flush with the body, which is really nice because I don't want any more camera bumps. And also, we have good old Touch ID, ever reliable. It's amazing. I'm very happy. That's also sticking around. But now we come to the good part, guys. The price. This will only set you back $299. You heard me right. A new iPad with a laminated display, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, A13 chip for $299. This seems like such a great deal now because they fixed a lot of issues I had with the original budget iPad, such as the non-laminated display and of course the lack of storage, and of course they made the price even cheaper. That's insane to me, and this is going to be very, very popular in the education market. Take into account Apple will also give this an education discount, probably $50 cheaper, so $250 for students to have a powerful tablet like this to take notes with and just do classwork. That's pretty mind-blowing, and I think it's going to be a huge success for Apple. Now, in terms of when this launches, this report says we should be seeing them as soon as spring 2021. So that basically means we could be seeing them in March. Now, of course, some of you are probably wondering, hey, we got the current budget iPad back in September, so shouldn't we get the new one in September 2021? Why is it launching so early? Well, of course, I don't really have an answer to that. Timothy can just be a very unpredictable man, but I think that maybe because the last refresh we got was so minor, I mean, it really had no changes apart from the A12 chip, maybe Apple can justify upgrading it early because the last model was just not much of an upgrade. And of course, before the 2019 iPad, we saw the 2017 and 2018 version of the budget iPad launch in March. So the March timeframe definitely makes a lot of sense to me, especially since this is not a huge product for Apple, and so they can quietly release it at the beginning of the year. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about the iPad 9. Now, yes, I know this isn't exactly innovative, it's just, you know, Apple taking parts from older products and just combining them and making a cheaper iPad. It's not exactly the most exciting thing in the world, but honestly, making products more accessible and making greater products more accessible is something that's important, and I'm happy to see Apple is offering a very good iPad at a really accessible price. Anyways, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification, and with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. See you, peeps.